Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel.
Hello, this is Dr. Grande. This video is made for my Patreon members, so this is a little bit more informal and more personal and I suppose less scientific. That's the trade-off, I guess, that this type of video enters into. I've been asked a number of questions over the last few months and even some questions before that about my channel and about me personally, and I wanted to try to answer some of those questions in this video. So just some of the questions I'll be covering here would be, how did I get started with my YouTube channel? How do I decide what questions to answer? What's the process of developing a video? And some questions about my personal life, like do I have a family and what work do I do outside of working on YouTube? So the first question is about picking questions. How do I pick the questions that I use for my channel, right? And I actually have several considerations I use here, several questions that I ask of the question I'm getting. Is the question consistent with what I cover in my channel? Am I capable of covering it, right? Some items are just beyond my area of study, so much that I really can't catch up in a reasonable amount of time. Sometimes, though, if I get one that's a little bit outside my comfort zone, I'll still take it on. I just have to read a lot more to answer it. Sometimes dozens of articles, right? I try to avoid that, but I do like the learning experience for myself, so it's kind of an interesting trade-off there. The easier ones, of course, are the ones that are related to something I know a lot about, like psychopathology or appraisal or counseling or personality constructs or something like that. But if I get like an unusual case, like if it's a true crime question, it's an unusual case, I'll usually try to chase that down and research that, or an unusual disorder, same thing. If a question is related to recent news, that tends to be, I think, a little more favored, right? So I'll select that one over kind of an equivalent question that's not about a recent news item. If there are a number of questions on the same area, like for example, if a lot of people ask about borderline personality disorder, BPD, and anger, and there might be different questions, right? Like, I have anger and BPD, so what do I do? Or my relative has anger and BPD. Or how do mental health clinicians deal with people who are angry and have BPD? Or whatever it is, right? All these different questions. I can take these questions and make a composite, right? So I'll make one question that kind of more or less answers all those questions. Sometimes it takes me a few questions. I have to make a few to answer a lot. So I make 3 questions that really answer 20 questions. So that's one way I do it. Another question I get is, do I design the videos to be successful, right? Like, am I aware of how a video may perform in terms of views? Well, all the videos I make, I want them to have educational value, right? So whether they get viewed or not, I want them to have at least some connection to science, or at least something useful in terms of education. Obviously, I want every video to be viewed. I want every video to be successful. If nobody views a video I put on YouTube, then it's not doing anybody any good. So it kind of runs counter to the mission of my channel. So in terms of view strategy, yes, I do want the videos to be viewed, and I do try to pick topics that I think I can make an interesting video on so that it will be viewed. And sometimes when I make a video, I do believe it'll be viewed more times than average, right? I make some and I kind of realize this video is going to be a little bit more successful. Like the recent video I made on the movie Joker, the 2019 movie. I kind of knew that video would do a little bit better because I had a lot of requests for it, and it's a current topic, at least current in terms of the time I'm making this video. And other times I make videos and I know they're not going to be viewed too many times, right? I make them and I feel like they're good videos, I stand behind them, but I know they're not going to be popular. There's always a balance between the educational value, the intended popularity, the anticipated popularity, the number of times that a topic has been requested, and I also look at, can the video be monetized? I'm certainly willing to make videos that get demonetized, right? Like videos on serial killers almost always get demonetized by YouTube, which I understand. But I try to balance it. I try not to make all videos that will get demonetized, because that wouldn't be good financially. That wouldn't be wise. But I don't want to just look at a topic and say, well, just because I can't make money off of it, I'm not going to cover it. I definitely want to cover all types of topics, even the ones that don't make money. So it's a balance, right? So I make a lot of videos I believe will be able to get monetized, and I'm careful how I structure the videos to increase my chances a little bit. But I also think that when you're making quality content, like I hope I'm making, you just have to make what's in front of you, right? Like, it has educational value, it's important, so I make it, and a lot of those, again, won't get through the monetization process. So I mentioned the videos about serial killers. Those are probably the most popular class of video that I make that doesn't get monetized, really true crime in general. Anything involving like a homicide or a sex crime or something is pretty likely to get demonetized. But I think these case studies are kind of important, and they're really a great way to engage a lot of people, because a lot of people have interest in those types of subject matters. So I think it's worth it. Another type that gets demonetized a lot would be the just ordinary case studies. I've noticed those don't have good luck through the monetization process, which is curious. I'm not really sure why that is, and I've tried adjusting some of my strategies a little bit. Like I'll say, instead of the word case study early in the video, I'll use the term case presentation. It's exactly the same thing, but for whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm doesn't tend to pick up on case presentation as much as the words case study. And I could just say case study and have it be demonetized and then send it for appeal. But the appeals process, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Most of the time when I appeal, I actually lose. I think I lose about 80% of appeals. So an appeal process, of course, with YouTube is when they say it can't be monetized, you can appeal that and somebody reviews it, right? But again, I found that I lose 80% of the time. So it's better to try to win at the algorithm level. So when I upload my video, usually within a half hour or so, if it doesn't turn yellow, meaning demonetized, if it stays green, I know I have a good chance of it staying green for a while, permanently or a while. Sometimes what happens, and this is probably the most frustrating, is I'll make a video, I'll be very careful with the title, I'll be careful about what I say in the first 20 seconds, all the different things I've learned over the years to increase my chances of being monetized. And it'll be going well, it'll be getting a lot of views, and then a day later, it'll be demonetized. I don't know why that happens, and I don't have any better chance with an appeal with that type of video. So it's just, it happens, it's not a big deal. Again, I understand that I'm going to have a mix of some that make it through and have ads on them, and some that don't. So that's kind of my thoughts in terms of views. Another question I have here is the history of the channel. Many people have asked over the years, can I talk about like how I got started, how the channel evolved? Well, the channel started with the videos being made for my students where I teach. I teach in a counseling program, a master's level counseling program. So I teach students that someday will hope to get a license like the one that I have. And when I started, really all the videos were for them, and I had them on kind of a private website through the university where I work. And one of my colleagues said, you should just put them on YouTube, right? YouTube's just easier because you have a link that anyone can access. That made sense to me, so I also put them on YouTube. And I noticed that the views were kind of going higher than what I'd expect for the students viewing them. And that's because people in the public were viewing them. And I didn't even realize that was going to happen. I really didn't understand how YouTube worked. I didn't know about subscribers. I didn't know about the algorithm or monetization. This was long before the channel was monetized. So I increased the number of videos I added. Again, these were for classes I was teaching. And more people from the outside started to watch. And I was mostly making statistics videos, some role plays, some Excel videos in the beginning. I did that from mid-2014 all the way to about September 2017. And it became a little bit better in those 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years, in terms of making quality videos with like audio quality. I kind of dialed in a lot of my disfluencies, like in terms of speech. If you listen to my earlier videos, I'm saying like and like all the time. I mostly got rid of those, not completely, and just really refined the videos, tried to make them a little more packed with information and not as wordy and all that. No repetition, or I tried to avoid repetition anyway. So did that till September 2017, and then I wanted to kind of add videos where I was talking directly to the audience in a sense, like I'm doing now, about psychopathology, about counseling treatments, about all kinds of things. And I started recording in my office at work, and students were helping me at first, and everybody did a good job. It was a good format, but there was just some logistical problems. First of all, my office had to be available. I share my office with other people. The students had to be available. We are situated where I work at the university near an airport, so it's pretty noisy. And depending on the time of day, the building itself is noisy. I mean, people are going back and forth, conducting the business of running a university. So it just got a little bit noisy, and I also couldn't do the editing there, right? So I have to edit at home. So I would shoot there and hope I got everything I needed, and then I would come home and edit, and I would see that I messed up. And it was very hard. I'd have to get dressed in the same clothes and all this stuff, the same time of day, because the light coming through the window to get that shot again to replace the mistake I made. So usually I just tossed that video, right? That happened a few times. So that was getting kind of prohibitive, and also I think it was just causing me too much stress because I was trying to be so careful in the video so I didn't have to throw it out or come back and shoot new footage. So I did that for a while, as I mentioned, and then I started recording more at home, like in front of a bookcase I had, even in front of just a white wall, like just a wall in my dining room. And that type of format had some problems as well. The motor vehicle traffic was very obvious in the videos. If an airplane flew over, that was obvious. If somebody came home and opened the door, if the dog barked, like everything interfered with making those videos. Those were very hard to make. The convenient part was it was in my living room or dining room, so it was at home. But the inconvenient part was pretty much everything else. So then I moved the whole operation to the basement. I put up a green screen and the bright lights and the camera and everything down there. Actually had a couple cameras down there. Mostly used one. And I really enjoyed that. Like, I enjoyed some of the clear advantages that had. I could shoot at a variety of times, day or night. I didn't have to worry about natural lighting. I didn't have to worry about some of the vehicle traffic. That was really, I think, reduced quite a bit, and even any type of airplane traffic was reduced. But it introduced a number of new problems, like creaky floors, right? So if somebody's walking on the first floor, that would come up in the audio when I was recording. The HVAC system in my house, I have a heat pump. It had to be turned off completely because it kicks on and off as needed, and it would change the volume quite a bit. And it was really just too loud because the air handler was only about maybe 15 feet away from the microphone. The plumbing, right, was an issue as people used different plumbing fixtures upstairs, right? The noise would come downstairs. And I think another difficult part was similar to being in my living room or dining room is no one could be in the house or everyone had to be quiet. So it was kind of like holding the whole house hostage in a way. There was, again, a lot of pressure. So I had just a limited window, and that pressure just got me stressed out. I really want to be able to record in a setting where I don't have to rush through it or worry about getting done. I know in real life people have time pressures, and even now I do have some time pressures, like I have to get a video done eventually. But I don't have to worry if I go 15 minutes over or even an hour over. It's not a big deal. But in the basement, I really had maybe 45 minutes at most. Also, the way it was arranged down there is I was standing on a concrete floor. Of course, I could have got a chair, but I just never did. So it was just easier to move up here where I am now, right? So that change took place in December of 18. I started recording right here, and this may look like my office, but it's actually my bedroom/office. So no one else is in here, right? I have it to myself. I have the bright lights here behind the camera, and I have the two windows here behind me. Well, one that you can see, and then one large window here to my right. And this is kind of subject to road noises. I hear that a lot. I have to kind of pause when a loud vehicle goes by. It's definitely subject to air traffic, right? The noises from air traffic, not air traffic in my house, right? They don't fly like through the window, but overhead, and for whatever reason, there's a lot of helicopters around here. I don't know why, and they're particularly tough to edit out in terms of like software. And it's also, as I mentioned, kind of convenient if I make a mistake. There's no time pressures. And also lawnmowers are a problem, especially, of course, in the summer. So it's subject to a lot of kind of noise problems, but it has a lot of other market advantages. Again, very convenient. I really like that I'm seated in a chair that's comfortable. I kind of like the way I frame the shot. Like it really works for me anyway. I don't know if other people necessarily like it, but I like it better than the green screen. I think too that with the green screen I had trouble sometimes dialing in the chroma key, like getting it taken out. And here I don't have to worry about that. I can control the background pretty well, right? So that's kind of the history of, well, I guess that was more like my recording setup. But in terms of the content, as I mentioned, I kind of switched over to talking right to the camera, and I built that, brought in more kind of recent topics, started varying the topics a little bit more, moved away from statistics and Excel and all that. I just really ran out of ideas there, and I wanted to go with a different direction anyway, so that kind of worked out. So I have really a virtually unlimited, a functionally unlimited supply of content for this format. I have more questions on the Word document where I keep them than I could ever answer, which again I really appreciate. And I hope that as new ideas come up, I can again retrieve some of those old questions and make them into composites, so I can still answer a lot of those old questions that have been answered. But it's nice to have an unlimited source of fuel for videos and to have the ability to be a little bit picky, to choose ones I think are going to have more of an impact and again may be viewed more, may be more popular, right? That does help spread the message of mental health and science and everything I try to promote here. Next question is, what's my most favorite type of video to make? I really like all the formats, but I'll answer the question. It's a fair question, right? There's probably going to be one I like more than others. I would say the most fun would be like the mental health and personality characteristics of movie characters. I like movies. I'm a big fan. I don't like every movie, but I like the idea of movies. And there are a number that I really enjoy. And I think that movies kind of tie people together, right? If 1 million people or 2 million people or 20 million people have seen the same movie, then that gives you some sort of common ground. And it just makes it easier to communicate. It's a common reference. Another thing I like about fictional characters is I don't really have to be careful. I try to be careful and responsible, but when I'm talking about real people, it's much more stressful. Now again, I never diagnose anybody. I only speculate about what could be happening in a situation like that. But still, I'm more careful when I'm talking about a real person, especially if the person is alive, right? I mean, if it's an historical figure, somebody who's been dead for 20 or 50 years or something, I mean, I'm still careful, but that's a little bit different. So with a fictional character, you don't really have to worry about that stuff. Another format I really like is the mental health and the law type videos. So like the true crime, but also just whenever the law intersects mental health. It's kind of an area of specialty for me, so kind of has a special place in my thinking. And when I choose topics, I think those topics get favored a bit. I'm biased in that way. I like it when that legal area intersects mental health. I think it's important. It affects a lot of people, and I think it resonates with people, those type of topics. How about my least favorite format? Well, like I said, I don't mind any format, but if I had to pick, I would say, I just kind of mentioned it in the other segment there, videos about real people, right? I know these are important videos, and I try to make them because they do help engage people about current topics, and they can really bring the topics alive in a way that a fictional character can't. But again, they're kind of stressful to make, so I don't mind making them, but if I had to say which one is my least favorite, there you go. It would be making videos about real people. Even though, as I mentioned, it's not really about them, right? I use them to kind of get the conversation going, to kind of set the topic. But again, there's no diagnosing. But either way, least favorite one there. So, have I ever been surprised by a video that did very well or did very poorly, right? It's a good question. I generally know what to expect from a video in terms of performance. Like, I'm fairly well versed in statistics and probability and all that. And I've been careful to study how YouTube works. It hasn't necessarily helped me get more views, but it has helped me predict the views pretty well. I can usually get within a few thousand in terms of how a video will do in the first 24 hours, right? Usually I do know pretty well, again, within a few thousand views of how it will perform. But some videos have definitely surprised me in a good way and in a bad way. I have a video, how to tell the difference between a psychopath and a narcissist. It's a good video, but it did exceedingly well. I didn't expect that. That one really surprised me. I thought it would do reasonably well. In terms of videos that have disappointed, I think probably one that really stands out for me. I have over 1,300 videos, so there have been a lot of disappointments and a lot of ones that have done better than expected. I would say the video I did on TerraSoft, the duty to warn, duty to protect. First of all, it was demonetized. Probably was demonetized because it involved a murder, right? So the person at the center of that video, TerraSoft, was murdered. Other videos about murder have gotten through, so I'm not really sure. It should have been demonetized. I disagree. Obviously, I appealed, but it did. So that was unfortunate. But also, I think in terms of that particular video, I really liked it. That one was hard to make. I researched a lot, put a lot of time into making that video. And it really shows how the law influences mental health treatment, so it's very important. It's a video I think that every counselor, every mental health professional really should watch, and probably every client should watch, because it really illustrates how the duty to warn evolved from a criminal case. It becomes a great teaching video. So I had high hopes for it. I put it out there, and I thought, this one's going to do well. And of course, demonetization, and then it went nowhere. It went nowhere. I looked at it before I recorded this video, and I think it's just above 5,000 views. So it didn't resonate. Again, I think great teaching video, though, and I stand behind it. It's a quality video, but to answer the question, it was a disappointment in terms of commercial success, obviously. One other feature about that video I want to mention is that it was about real people. So again, it was kind of stressful to make, like I talked about before, so I was hoping it would do a little better. I have done generally pretty well with videos that feature real people at some level. A great example would be a recent video I did about benzodiazepine use, and I kind of used this recent situation with Jordan Peterson to really talk about benzodiazepines and withdrawal. Again, just like I mentioned before a few times, it's not about the people, right? It's about other circumstances like mental health and, in this case, psychopharmacology. But having the real people in the thumbnail and the title, that attracts viewers a little bit more, and it connects the case to a recent occurrence. And I did a video about benzodiazepine withdrawal a long time ago, and it totally failed. It didn't do well at all. And really, I used a lot of that same material, plus some other things I'd learned since then, to make this one that featured the situation with Jordan Peterson so that I could talk about benzodiazepines. And that video did very well. Another example would be Munchausen by proxy, right? Not a popular topic, but the Gypsy Rose murder case, right? Combining those two, those videos do well. Shane Dawson and Eugenia, that interview with eating disorders, right? I've done eating disorder videos. They haven't done well, but those videos did well. So again, just using a popular topic, including real people, can really help. Can really help educate people about a topic that may not otherwise get them to kind of click on the video. Another question here would be, what's the process I go through? I talked about how I select topics, but how about the rest of the process? So typically the process starts, of course, with selecting a question or creating that composite. And usually I research the item for just a few minutes, right? Not too long. I just want to get kind of a cursory outlook of the topic. I might already know it well, but sometimes I don't. And I'll think it over. I'll reflect on the topic. And this can take several days, and sometimes it's taken considerably longer, especially with some of the true crime videos. So I'll get kind of a quick understanding. I'll think about it. I'll reflect on it in terms of my experience and other things I know from research literature or other sources. And then I'll start to research it a little bit more. And eventually, I'll reach kind of a point where I sit down and read a bunch on it, right? I'll read a dozen articles, 20 articles. Sometimes not that much, sometimes just 2 or 3. But I'll read as many as I need to feel like I can make a quality video, right? So sometimes I get lucky. It's just one article. Like one article just covers everything. That's pretty rare. Usually I do have to read quite a few. Some of them I don't use in the video, right? They're just to help me understand the topic. And sometimes what's in those articles doesn't really fit with the video. So I read it, but it doesn't make it into the video. So you end up reading a lot more than you put in the video. So either way, I'll do that, and then I'll create an outline, right? I'll build that outline, and I record that using voice-to-text software. So that becomes like this big multi-page outline. And I'll move that outline over to my laptop here, and then I'll record the video. I try to record the video on the same day that I complete the outline, but sometimes I make the outline and it goes to the next day. So I kind of have to refresh my mind, like I have to read the outline again and remind myself kind of the tone of the video and some different ideas that I might not have included in the text, right? So I've been better lately about putting those notes in the text and reminding myself there so I don't have to remember so much. But either way, that's kind of the process. Then after the recording, I make a lot of mistakes during recording, so it goes to post-production, and if I have 35 minutes of raw footage, that will make a video that's about 12, 13 minutes, something like that. 35 will make about 12 to 14 minutes, something like that. Sometimes I get very little out. Sometimes I record for longer and I get like 9 minutes. Other times I'm on a roll. I don't know what it is, just my mood, whenever I'm doing well that day. So there might be 27 minutes raw footage and that goes down to 12 to 14. That's a good day. That's a really good day if I can do that. I usually don't perform that well. Now some of those delays are because of interruptions, the dog barking, cars on the street, planes flying overhead, all the things I talked about before. And most of the time, though, most of the delays are mistakes I make, right? So mistakes I make in terms of speech, like I say something incorrectly, especially certain words I struggle with, and I have to say them several times. You don't see that on YouTube, of course, right? I edit that out, but they're there. They're there, like in the raw footage. And other times, I'll just decide while I'm recording, I don't like what I'm saying, right? Even though I put it in the outline, and I'll just take it out. Other times I'll record it anyway, and then I'll let myself decide that in post-production, right? So I'll remove stuff in post-production. It was actually good, like in terms of, like I said it correctly, but I don't like what I'm saying. I'm kind of high in conscientiousness in terms of like 5-factor model, and maybe I'll do a video about like my 5-factor model profile if anyone's interested in that. But I'm very high in conscientiousness. I'm too high, right? It's not good. It's not healthy at all. Not healthy at all. So one of the advantages of being high in conscientiousness is I think make like a quality product. You know, the videos can be tied to science and you can check them out. You can look at what I say and then compare it to the research literature that's supported. The disadvantage is it takes me a lot of time and I throw out a lot of my work, right? I'm unhappy with myself and my work and I just discard it. So that's really the double-edged sword of conscientiousness. If I could be a little bit lower in conscientiousness, I have to think about that. I don't know if I'd want to be, right? Because I think it enables me to do what I'm doing here. But I would have to think about it, right? I might be okay being a little less conscientious. Now, some of the personal questions I've received. I received a lot of questions about, like, do I have a family? Am I married? Things like that. I've been married for over 26 years. I have 3 sons. They're all adults. They all live in the same house. They work. They go to college. So they're not here, like, all the time or anything. But they're here at night most of the time that they live here. So, yeah, I have a family man. And I think it's, for me, it works. You know, I don't talk about it really on my YouTube channel, pretty much at all. But yes, yeah, I have a family. In terms of work, what I do other than this, well, I do a lot, right? I'm an associate professor in a counseling program. I see clients in a kind of agency that's set up kind of like a private practice. It's not a private practice. It's an agency, but I'm independent, right? I kind of do my own thing. And I really like that arrangement, but I don't really practice much, right? Just a half day a week, so not really that much. I also do some consulting and various types of work here and there, you know, statistics, research, going to agencies and helping them manage logistics and things like that. You know, so some various projects. I try to stay busy. I also serve on the licensing board for counseling and some other licenses that are under that same board. So professional counselors, chemical dependency professionals, and we have a couple other licenses we oversee. Our mandate there is to protect the public, so I'm really honored to serve in that capacity. I was appointed once to that board by the last governor in Delaware and appointed once by the current governor. And I'm appointed to the board. I also happen to be the president of the licensing board, but that's not something that the governor influences. The board elects the officers, so I was fortunate enough to be elected president of that licensing board, and it's been a good experience. That's something else I do. That doesn't take up too much time, but it's something else I do. in addition to kind of my other endeavors. So the last question I'll answer here is related to some references I made, I guess, in earlier videos about working on cars. Do I really do that? Do I like working on vehicles? I do. I've always liked buying older vehicles and fixing them up. I'm frugal, so it kind of fits with my personality. I haven't had too many new vehicles in my life. Most of them have been actually very old. I try to buy older, low mileage vehicles. I don't always succeed with the low mileage part, but that's kind of what I target, and I look for like pickup trucks and SUVs. I don't really do much with cars anymore. But yeah, I do work on them. I look at it as kind of a sign of defeat if I have to take my vehicle to a mechanic. I've had to do that twice in the past 15 years. Both were situations where I could not figure the problem out. I'm trying to think now what the problems were. Yeah, both were really diagnostic related. So I got a better scanner, so that's helped with diagnosing. Now again, that doesn't count warranty work. If a vehicle's under warranty, I'm going to take it in. But usually at any given time, only one of my vehicles has any type of warranty, right? Again, a lot of older vehicles. But yes, I do that type of work. I like getting tools and kind of planning out the job. A lot of times I watch videos on YouTube to learn how to fix whatever's broken. And it's just a sense of accomplishment. I like the challenge. I like working with my hands. As I get older, it's become a little bit harder, but mostly I do okay. A lot of the, I think, ways it's harder have to do with kind of like my vision and hearing, and not so much like working with my hands. Like that part I'm still mostly okay. But yeah, I do like it. I have a lot more confidence in repair when I do it myself, right? So when I do take vehicles to a mechanic, again, like I mentioned, I feel like it's kind of a defeat for me, and I have to double check their work, which I know they probably don't like, but I just feel better when I do it myself. I like that confidence driving down the road, knowing that I've replaced all the parts that were broken, I'm maintaining it, all that. So I think it's good to have hobbies outside of kind of your main area of expertise. By no means am I a good mechanic. I wouldn't say that, not good. I would say almost marginally adequate. But it's just an area of interest that kind of gives me a diversion away from mental health. And that's a good thing sometimes, right? Mental health is a serious business. You have to stay serious all the time. I think working on cars is serious too, but still, you know, it's a different type of serious, right? And again, kind of a good distraction and something else to do, and a way to stay kind of physically active a little bit. So those are the answers to the questions for this video. I want to thank everybody watching here for supporting me on Patreon. I really appreciate it. I realize that financially things are very different for different people, right? And I really don't like going on YouTube in any way asking people for support. I have a problem with that, as some of you have already recognized. I'm not good at any type of self-promotion, and I think it's just because, you know, working with people for so long as a counselor, whether people have mental disorders or not, just working with people in general. Again, I know people have a variety of financial circumstances, and I guess even though I kind of value what I do, I completely understand if other people have other priorities, right? So I'm just very sensitive to that kind of issue. I know people have needs they have to meet, and when people do support me, you know, I really do appreciate that. It's very flattering. It's very humbling, because money that could be used for something else is being sent to me, you know. So it's something I struggle with a little bit, right? For whatever reason, with the advertising revenue, that feels different, right? Somebody watches an ad or whatever, and I get a penny or a fraction of a penny or whatever. That feels, I don't know, that just feels different. When somebody's actually sending money to me, like through Patreon, that again really humbles me, right? That's something I take very seriously. And I genuinely really appreciate the support that you're offering by being on Patreon. For as long as you can be on Patreon and help me, I appreciate it. I can understand people might be on here for a while and then have to leave because of financial reasons. I completely get that, right? So it's just, I think, important to know how a content creator feels about, you know, different things with support and finances and all, kind of my attitude toward it. I think it's important people understand that. And again, can't say it enough. Thank you so much. So here, you know, with Patreon, if you have video ideas, obviously any questions you have, I'm going to try to give those priority. and answer them maybe in this more informal setting, right? Which I don't think is necessarily worse, but it's not maybe as efficient. I'll try to be efficient. Please put those questions in. I'll do my best to either cover them here, in this format, or even on YouTube, right? But I do want to try to get to as many of those as I can. More personal questions, or questions that relate more to like reflection or philosophy or something, I'll probably try to answer more on here, on Patreon, as opposed to YouTube. Now I say here, but of course this video is uploaded to YouTube, but only available on Patreon. But yes, when I say here, I mean Patreon. So yeah, I'll try to keep those type of videos here, like anything about like my personality or kind of personal beliefs, whatever. Try to contain that to this format, right? The other types of videos have, I think, a broader reach, and again, I want to try to maintain that separation. Where on YouTube, I'm really talking to a wide audience, and on Patreon, of course, I'm talking to a smaller audience. So that's it for this video. Just want to say thank you one more time. Very much appreciated, and I hope to see you soon.